For the nth time, we've entered yet another legalised duck hunting season in Victoria, and that's despite decades of overwhelmingly popular calls to end the practice. But some legends don't wait for bans to take matters into their own hands. They get out there and they do what they can to stop the hunters themselves. To discuss that and to discuss what the hell duck hunting is still a thing for, I'd like to welcome Georgie Purcell, who's a member of the Victorian Parliament for the Animal Justice Party. G'day, Georgie. Hello and welcome.
G'day, Tom.
You know, I just want to say, mate, before we get into the duck hunting hoo-ha, you have the best social media feed of any polly I've ever seen by like a country mile. You seem to have a full staff of really fucking funny people, and you're always surrounded by animals, which I get it's kind of on brand for the party and all, but you're like a regular Dr. Doolittle, like in your feed. You actually kind of make it seem like being a politician is fun instead of like weird and soul destroying. What are you doing? What are you doing right that so many of them aren't? What's going on here?
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, I made a really strong commitment to myself when I got elected that I was just going to be myself, because I was myself throughout my campaign, and politicians try way too fucking hard to be like polished and perfect, and they lose their authenticity and their personality, and I think that's what people want to see. So I just, give people everything.
Can you tell me anything in at least broad strokes about what the plans are for countering the duck hunting season in 2023?
Yeah, so every single year we have volunteers doing the job of picking up these maimed and wounded birds that are illegally left behind by shooters. It's an offence to not collect a bird that you have shot. And so often they just leave them because they essentially can't be fucked. Like it's, the bird's too far away, they've escaped, they're moving quickly. So we have these volunteers going out, many of them breaking the law because it is illegal to enter the wetlands prior to 10 a.m. and shooting this year starts at 8 a.m. And they're sacrificing, their safety, putting themselves at risk in order to do a job that is not theirs to do, right? Like it's not volunteers' jobs to go out and pick up these birds. Then, of course, we have other ways that we try and deter the activity of shooters by, closing down the locations where this is happening. We have volunteers out for weeks now who are counting the birds on wetlands where there's threatened and protected species to get them shut down to shooters, and exposing all the very many ways in which they behave, illegally, but also just unethically so often. And the authorities, instead of focusing on this illegal behaviour by the shooters, year after year after year, they go after the people that are rescuing and find them and arrest them. I mean, I've been arrested before out on the wetlands with my shoulders up to the water, and they're putting their attention on the wrong people. Yeah, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. But this has been countering the duck hunting season has been going for so long. I mean, I remember as a child. I actually remember as a child being in the city with my dad. I was like a little boy, and Dad went up to this man and he shook his hand and he said, "Thank you so much for all your work." And I was like, "Who is that?" And he said, "Oh, that's a man named Laurie Levy, and he's a hero and he saves ducks." And that was my introduction to what duck hunting was as a kid. And Laurie had been out. He was first disrupting hunts, I think, in the 1970s on the wetlands. I'm going to display some wild photos of him in some really sexy short shorts in that era, saving ducks and pissing off hunters. He's a legend, But that was so long ago. I mean, how have things changed, both for duck hunting and disruption since back then? I mean, that was the 70s, right?
Yeah, the first thing I wanted to say is Laurie Levy is now 81, and that man is already, I know, situated on a wetlands right now, ready for the season to begin. He will not stop fucking with these shooters until it's banned, and, he is such a legend. This, I guess, fight started in the 70s, and something that I like to sort of reflect on to put it into perspective of how dedicated these people have been is I was not born then. I was nowhere near born then. I was born in 1992. Now, all these years have gone on. I'm now a member of parliament who is still working to fix this alongside these people. And it's like, it shouldn't take this long. But like you said, so much has changed in that time. In the 70s, Laurie was going out on the wetlands and there would be shooters, every few meters, and hundreds of thousands of shooters out there killing these native birds every weekend, bagging out, going over their bag limits. And duck shooting was big, like it was popular then. Now we're looking at a situation where, because of his tireless campaign and all the many people that have worked beside him, it's hard to find duck shooters. It's hard to find where they're actually going. And the days of, being outnumbered by shooters are long gone. There are always way more rescuers and way more people that are doing their best to end this and obstruct this. They far outweigh the shooters. And I think that goes to show how much of a powerful campaign he has run over the years. And, we want that man to be able to retire. And we know he won't retire until we end this fucking thing.
Let's give Laurie Levy a fucking break. Jesus. Yeah. Now, Georgie, I saw messages a few months ago effectively saying that the Victorian government was considering a ban on duck hunting. What form is that taking, that consideration? And what the hell happened?
I guess from the political perspective, one thing that we realised working on that aspect of the campaign was we're going to have a Labor government in Victoria for the foreseeable future. And obviously, we know that no matter how progressive the crossbench is, which is, it was relatively progressive. Well, the numbers were there in the last parliament. The numbers are well and truly there in this parliament. I mean, we've got a very, very socially progressive crossbench. But we knew that in order to end this, we obviously had to change Labor's position. So we worked really hard on getting the MPs, the Labor MPs in Victoria, to actually personally, publicly come out opposed to duck shooting on the record. And by the end of the last term, we had, almost half of the caucus, excluding the ministry, out there on the record saying that they want duck shooting to be banned, which is pretty rare because Labor MPs are really good at towing the line, even if they might not personally agree with it, and working internally to change things. And we made it a really big political issue for them internally, and that put the pressure on. And we were hearing the same as you. We were being told this is going to happen this year. There's not going to be a season. I mean, they had the perfect fertile ground for a ban. I mean, not only were they were returned with an even bigger majority and a progressive crossbench. Like, they had absolutely nothing to worry about. But there is just this powerful small group within the cohort that we have heard that believe that this is going to affect the country support. And we absolutely reject that. Time and time again, we have shown that this is not an, inner city latte sipping lefty issue. Like, people across the whole state want this. In fact, regional Victorians are often the most powerful voices because they have to live with this fucking disturbance in their backyards. It's not often locals going out in their own areas doing this. It is people travelling in to their area, taking over their wetlands that they often use for things like hiking, kayaking, bushwalking, taking their dogs out for a stroll. And they get up, like, without doubt, every year they get up one morning and there is these men with guns in this area that they often use, and it's confronting. So, they want it gone just as much as people in the city do. And I'm obviously a regional Victorian and I get it all the time, prior to being an MP and now being an MP. So we think that it's there. We think it's a breaking point. And I guess the decision was made to have a parliamentary inquiry instead. So a select committee has been formed, which I'm on, and will be delivering a report to the Parliament by August 31, which gives them a number of months before a decision has to be made on a 2024 season. Okay. And I'm really hoping it's a nail in the coffin.
All right. So on one hand, there's the inquiry going on, and on the other hand, in the meantime, you're going out to boots on ground help with countering and the like. I think that's incredible. I love it.
That's exactly what I said. Like I said earlier, I was always going to keep being myself when I
Yeah.
became a politician, and I've been a duck rescuer for this will be my 11th year out there on the wetlands,
Yep.
and I bloody well hope it's my last because 11's enough for me. I don't know how Laurie's done it for almost 50 years.
Incredible. I want us to make some space for how to acknowledge how cool and magnanimous and understanding duck hunters themselves must be to all of your efforts.
It's probably important to note that before becoming an MP myself, I spent 4 years working for Andy Medic, our first MP. And so I obviously got the idea of what political life would be like through him. And obviously, in many ways, he had awful experiences with, absolute cookers, especially over the pandemic.
I had a good long chat with Andy Medic about some of his run-ins with conspiracists of the anti-lockdown movement in a video I did about 6 months ago called Mission to Melbourne. So feel free to go back and have a look at that.
So I was prepared for that, but one thing, not discounting his experience because he had terrible experiences, I was not prepared for how much worse these losers would be to a woman. And it's just not just a woman, but a young woman who has been very open about formerly being in sex work. They just see me as, absolute dirt, and they will say anything they please to me and about me that always makes its way back to me. I guess to give you an example that I thought about, I wake up in the morning, and because I knew I was talking to you today, thought it'd be good to mention this. I wake up in the morning, and don't get me wrong, I get a lot of lovely messages and comments, but reading my feed in the morning is just like reading, it's like reading the newspaper of abuse. And my comment this morning said, "Look at it. What a vile slug."
Cool.
Yeah, they say the most disgusting things about me. They slut shame, they criticise how I look, they criticise my past.
They sent me a few clippings from Georgie's daily newspaper of abuse, but this one guy was my favourite. He's clearly obsessed with her. In this one, he goes, "She did a private lap dance last week. Pretty bloody ordinary." He makes that, he fanfics a private lap dance because he can't stop thinking about her. And then he says the most dero-normie thing conceivable about the fanfic that he's just made up in his head. Pretty bloody ordinary.
I just, for some reason, I'm not bothered by it because I know it's wrong. I absolutely know it's wrong. And it needs to stop. But I take a fair bit of, I guess, pride in the fact that they are so threatened by a young woman that is successful, that's taking them on and won't be intimidated by them. And as you said, on my social media, I do things differently. So I call them out because they want me to read that and be small and be scared and to be frightened and to tone myself down. And I will never, ever give that to them. Something that I've actually found personally quite satisfying is I see them now fighting with each other and say, "Stop commenting on Georgie's post, you're making us all look bad." So now it's the fact that the abusive slut shamers is now fracturing their own community.
Incredible.
And taking away from their broader fight. We're up here and they're down here. Like we're fighting the issue and the campaign and the injustice. And the best they've got is, criticising the fact I used to be a stripper or how I look. Like,
totally.
The fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, they're on their last gasps, really, when that's all they've got left. Just before we move on from cool abuse from cool people, I understand you get some interesting voice messages too. Any of them come to mind?
Yeah, so we do have this one guy who calls the electorate office every day and doesn't call during business hours because my office always has someone in it and the phone is always answered. So he intentionally calls outside of business hours, and every day he just quacks for about 30 seconds and leaves a voicemail and then hangs up.
Quack, 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 quack.
And now there's also another guy that calls up and calls me Duck Woman, and also calls outside of hours, leaves me a message, calls me Duck Woman.
Quack, 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 quack. Quack, quack. Quack, 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 quack. Quack, 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 quack.
So I think that's meant to bother me as well, but now we've started this thing with the staff where when the quacking message comes through, we'll do a dance to it. So he's actually...
So I don't see, just sort of interrogating what the meaning of that is. I don't see why the sound of a duck would trigger you. You like ducks. You are going to defend them. You'd be like, I would think it would be them. You know what I mean? It would be, I would leave a quacking voicemail on a hunter's phone, and that might be more upsetting to them, I suppose. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't presume to understand how these people think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as we've already determined, they don't seem to have the best strategy.
Yeah, they're not thinking this through.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let me make a call because it's definitely reported. I've been talking back and forth with the minister for days about it.
What can other people do, to help, I suppose, force the hand of the state government here? I mean, does it require everyone to don Laurie Levy-style sexy shorts and get out there like you're going to do? You know what I mean? I don't know about the shorts, but you're going out there. But does it require more bodies on ground? Because you'd already said that there's more of you than there is of them at this stage. Yeah. Or are there other things people can do?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, I just want to say I always endorse sexy shorts, no matter what you're doing. But the most important thing right now is actually, I mentioned that there's a parliamentary inquiry into the future of duck shooting in Victoria. Submissions are only open for just under 2 more weeks. And I think a lot of people hear about this stuff and think, oh, you would need to be an expert, or you would need to be an academic, or you'd need to have a personal experience as a duck rescuer to do this. I'm here to tell you absolutely don't. If you're opposed to duck shooting, please send in even just a few lines about why you are to the committee, because I can tell you now the duck shooters will be doing the same thing, and they'll be doing it en masse. And it's very, very important that we hear from people across the political spectrum and right across Victoria, no matter where they're located, about how they feel about this. We have a lot of duck rescuers, as I said, but if anyone ever wants to get involved, you can absolutely sign up with the Coalition Against Duck Shooting, which is Laurie Levy's group, at duck.org.au. The season this year is only for 5 weeks. It's drastically reduced. So if you are planning on doing that, I'd get on board quickly.
Thank you so much, Georgie Purcell. Thanks for your time. And, hey, best of luck disrupting these losers this year.
Thanks, Tom, and thank you for your support. It was so great to chat.
Righto, remember that's duck.org.au for the Coalition Against Duck Shooting. Do take some time to submit to that parliamentary inquiry. Let them know your thoughts. Thank you so much to Georgie Purcell for her time and energy. And patreon.com/Tom Tanek if you enjoy my work. Cheers.